Part 1. My name is David, and for the longest time, I believed I was one of the lucky ones. My wife, Mary, and I had been married for 8 years, and in that time, we built what I thought was an unshakable bond. We had a 7-year-old daughter, Emily, who was the light of our lives. Everything seemed perfect. Mary was a freelance designer, which allowed her a flexible schedule while I worked as a financial analyst. Our combined income let us live comfortably in a beautiful suburban home. We traveled often, always making time for new experiences. Beach vacations, mountain hikes, road trips across the country. Our Instagram was filled with snapshots of our adventures, always hand in hand, always smiling. We had explored the pristine beaches of Maui, hiked the rugged trails of the Grand Canyon, and even taken a cruise through the Caribbean, where we danced under the stars. Every memory was a treasure, a testament to the life we had built together. We weren't just husband and wife, we were best friends. Our mornings were filled with coffee and conversation, our evenings with movies and laughter. We shared dreams, planned our future, and envisioned growing old together. If there were cracks in our marriage, I never noticed them. I truly believed we were unbreakable. Weekends were sacred to us. We took Emily to the zoo, the aquarium, and the amusement park. We built sandcastles on the beach and had picnics under the summer sun. In the winter, we would rent cabins in the mountains, teaching Emily how to ski and sledding down the slopes until our cheeks were flushed with cold and laughter. Life felt like a perfect picture, a beautiful, uninterrupted melody. Mary had recently become more passionate about fitness. She joined a high-end gym and took personal training sessions, something she had always wanted to do but never had time for. I encouraged her wholeheartedly. I was proud of her dedication, and she often spoke about how good it made her feel. We would go on early morning jogs together by the lake, where the mist rose from the water and the air was crisp with possibility. It was just another way we stayed connected, another way we supported each other. We had date nights every Friday, a tradition we kept alive no matter how busy life got. Sometimes, it was an elegant dinner at a 5-star restaurant. Other times, it was a cozy evening at home with takeout and a bottle of wine. No matter the setting, we always made time for each other, reinforcing the love that had carried us through the years. Our intimacy had never wavered. We still looked at each other with the same passion we had when we first met. Mary would surprise me with little notes in my work bag, and I would bring her flowers just because. Every moment felt special because we made it that way. We laughed, we loved, we lived. If there were any signs that the foundation of our marriage was cracking, I was blind to them. Our friends often told us how lucky we were. Other couples we knew had fights, misunderstandings, and growing resentment, but we seemed immune to all of that. We had our fair share of disagreements, but we always found a way back to each other. We communicated openly, resolved conflicts before they grew into something bigger, and never went to bed angry. I took pride in the fact that Mary and I had built something so strong. We also made sure Emily experienced the world in the best way possible. We wanted her to grow up with memories of adventure, of wonder. She had already seen so much: Disney World, the Grand Canyon, and the clear blue waters of Hawaii. We loved watching her eyes light up with excitement as she explored new places, and we loved knowing we were giving her a childhood filled with love and adventure. As a couple, we sought new thrills together. We had gone skydiving for our 5th anniversary, an experience that left us breathless and exhilarated. We tried scuba diving, exploring the coral reefs hand in hand. Every adventure, every moment together, felt like another step in an incredible journey. Even at home, our life was fulfilling. Sunday mornings meant homemade pancakes, where Emily helped mix the batter and Mary danced around the kitchen. We played board games, watched movies, and spent countless evenings stargazing in our backyard. I thought we had it all, a perfect balance of excitement and comfort. Looking back, I wish I had known that sometimes happiness makes you blind. You stop looking for trouble when life seems perfect. You assume everything is as it should be, never realizing that the cracks may already be forming beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to shatter everything. For now, though, ignorance was bliss. We spent weekends at the park with Emily, held hands during our walks, and kissed each other goodnight without a second thought. I felt secure. I felt loved. I had no idea that my world was about to collapse beneath me. Part 2. At first, I didn't notice the subtle changes. It's always the little things, the ones you brush off, the ones you tell yourself don't matter. Life was busy, and I assumed we were just caught up in the everyday hustle. But looking back, I see it now, how the cracks had already started to form, how I had ignored the early warning signs. Mary had always been devoted to her work as a designer. It was one of the things I admired most about her creativity, her passion, her drive to make something beautiful. But lately, she seemed more consumed by it than ever before. Deadlines became never-ending, late nights at her computer became routine, and the time we used to spend together slowly disappeared. I told myself it was just a busy season, that every career had its ebbs and flows. She started going to bed later than me. I would fall asleep alone, expecting her to crawl into bed beside me at some point, but more often than not, I would wake up to find her side of the bed cold. When I asked, she said she had lost track of time while working. It made sense, and I didn't question it. But then the excuses started to pile up. She became distant, distracted, always preoccupied. Our conversations became short and shallow. I would ask about her day, and she would give me a vague answer before changing the subject. It was as if she was there, but not really. She had always been the one to initiate our late-night talks, the ones where we would sit up in bed and talk about everything, our dreams, our plans, our love. But now, she hardly ever looked me in the eye when we spoke. Then, there was her phone. Mary had never been the secretive type. We were the kind of couple that shared everything: passwords, social media accounts, even our schedules. It wasn't about control, it was about trust. But one evening, I reached for her phone to check the weather, and suddenly, it was locked. A password I didn't know. I laughed and handed it back to her. "You changed your password?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She barely glanced at me as she took the phone. "Oh, yeah. I got a security alert the other day. Just being careful." I nodded, pretending it was nothing. And maybe it was. People change their passwords all the time. But something about the way she said it, the way she avoided my gaze, felt off. Her gym visits also became more frequent. She had always been dedicated to fitness, but now, she was spending hours there longer than before. She said it was because she was pushing herself, setting new goals. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to be the supportive husband, to tell her how proud I was. And I did. But doubt had started creeping in, whispering in the back of my mind. She was also on her phone more than usual. It wasn't just the amount of time she spent scrolling, but the way she acted when she was on it. If I walked into the room, she would quickly lock the screen or tilt it away from me. It was subtle, but I noticed. When I asked who she was texting, she would always give me the same answer: her coworkers, her gym friends, her sister. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe she was just stressed. Maybe she was overwhelmed with work. Maybe I was overthinking everything. I wanted to be the husband who trusted his wife, not the one who suspected her over something so trivial. But the distance between us grew. She stopped touching me the way she used to. She used to run her fingers through my hair absent-mindedly when we watched movies. She used to kiss me good morning without thinking twice. Now, everything felt forced. I started keeping track in my mind, noticing every little change. When was the last time she reached for my hand first? When was the last time she asked how my day was? When was the last time she said, "I love you," without me saying it first? One night, as we lay in bed, I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away, but she didn't squeeze mine back either. I turned to her, studying her face in the dim light. "Are you okay?" I asked softly. She nodded. "Yeah, just tired." I didn't push, but I knew. Something was wrong. I just didn't know what yet. Then, there were the canceled plans. Mary had always loved our date nights, the little escapes from reality that kept our connection strong. But suddenly, she was too busy. "Work deadline," she'd say. "I'm exhausted," she'd mumble. I understood at first. Life gets overwhelming. But when it became a pattern, when she started making excuses instead of efforts, I felt a sinking feeling in my gut. Even Emily noticed. "Why doesn't Mommy eat dinner with us anymore?" she asked one evening, her big blue eyes filled with confusion. "She's just working a lot, sweetheart," I reassured her, forcing a smile. But inside, I was drowning in questions. Late one night, I heard her laughing softly in the living room. A quiet, breathy chuckle. The kind of laugh she used to give me when we were first dating. I peeked through the doorway, watching as she sat curled up on the couch, phone in hand, completely absorbed. The glow from the screen illuminated her face, and for a moment, she looked happy, happier than she had been with me in months. I stood there, frozen, my heart pounding. I wanted to ask her who she was talking to. I wanted to walk in and demand answers. But instead, I turned around and went back to bed. Because the truth was, I was afraid. Afraid of what I might hear. Afraid of what it might mean. The first alarm bells had rung. I just hadn't been ready to listen. Part 3. Doubt had taken root in my mind, and no matter how much I tried to dismiss it, I couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling in my gut. Something was wrong. Mary was pulling away from me, and it wasn't just work stress. It wasn't just burnout. I knew her too well to believe the excuses any longer. I had to know the truth. One evening, after dinner, Mary grabbed her gym bag and kissed Emily on the forehead. "I'll be back in a couple of hours," she said, flashing a quick smile before heading out the door. I watched her go, my stomach twisted in knots. The gym had become her second home lately, but something about the way she left tonight felt different. More calculated. More deliberate. I grabbed my car keys and decided to follow her. My heart pounded as I tailed her down the familiar streets, keeping a safe distance. I told myself I was being ridiculous, that I was about to confirm my paranoia was nothing but a mistake, that she would walk into the gym, work out, and come home like she always did. She pulled into the parking lot, stepped out of the car, and walked inside. I parked a few spaces away and waited, my fingers gripping the steering wheel. The minutes crawled by, each one heavier than the last. An hour later, she emerged. But she wasn't alone. A man walked beside her, tall and athletic, dressed in gym clothes. He carried himself with confidence, laughing at something she said. I watched as she playfully nudged his arm. Her face lit up with an expression I hadn't seen in months. I felt my breath catch in my throat. She looked happy, happier than she had been with me in so long. They walked to his car together, and I felt my entire body go cold when I saw them drive off. This wasn't just a workout partner. This wasn't just a friend. This was something else. I followed them. They drove for about 10 minutes before pulling into the parking lot of a sleek, modern apartment complex. I parked across the street, my hands trembling as I watched them disappear into the building. The seconds dragged on, turning into minutes, turning into an eternity. Every part of me wanted to storm inside, to demand answers, to confront her in the moment. But I didn't. Instead, I sat there, gripping the wheel, staring at the entrance like it held all the answers to my unraveling life. 1 hour passed. Then, finally, the door swung open. Mary stepped out, smoothing her hair, adjusting her gym bag over her shoulder. The man followed behind her, standing close, too close. She smiled up at him, that same radiant smile that once belonged to me. And then it hit me. This was it. The truth I had been trying to avoid, the reality I had been too afraid to face. Mary was cheating on me. The weight of it crushed me, stealing the air from my lungs. My wife, the woman I had built a life with, the mother of my child. She had given her heart, her time, her body to someone else. I watched them say their goodbyes, watched as she walked back to her car, her step lighter than it had been in months. She had been distant with me, cold, withdrawn. But with him, she was alive. I sat there long after she drove away, staring at the building, at the man who had taken what was mine. My hands clenched into fists, my jaw tightening as the rage and devastation crashed over me in waves. I had my answer now, but I wasn't sure I was ready to face what came next. I drove home in silence, my knuckles white against the steering wheel. The house felt different when I walked in. Colder, emptier, like the foundation of everything I had built had cracked beneath me. I sat on the couch in the dark, my mind racing. Should I confront her? Should I pretend I didn't see anything? Should I gather more proof? Sleep never came that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for Mary to return. When she finally did, she slipped into bed beside me like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just walked out of another man's apartment. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. The next morning, I couldn't look at her. I went through the motions, breakfast, getting Emily ready for school, but inside, I was drowning. Mary acted as if nothing had changed, as if she hadn't shattered our life into pieces the night before. I needed to know more. Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention. I checked our shared bank account and noticed withdrawals at restaurants I'd never been to, transactions that didn't match the story she was telling me. I checked her car's mileage, and it wasn't adding up. I even looked through the laundry, finding clothes that smelled of cologne that wasn't mine. And the texts. She had become more careful, deleting messages, keeping her phone close. But she slipped up once. A single notification popped up while she was in the shower. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." No name, just a number. That was all the confirmation I needed. I had been holding on to some false hope that maybe I was wrong, that maybe there was some explanation. But now, There was no denying it. Mary was having an affair. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, my fists clenched, my heart pounding. I knew what I had to do next. I just wasn't sure if I was ready for it. Part 4. The morning after I found the text, I knew there was no turning back. The life I had built with Mary was over. Whatever love I had for her was now buried beneath the betrayal, and I had no intention of saving a marriage that she had so carelessly thrown away. I spent the entire day preparing. I called a lawyer, someone highly recommended by a close friend who had gone through a messy divorce. I explained everything: Mary's infidelity, the impact it would have on Emily, and my desire to gain full custody. He assured me that with the evidence I had, my chances were strong. That night, I sat across from Mary at the dinner table. Emily was in her room, playing with her toys, oblivious to the storm brewing between her parents. I took a deep breath and pushed the divorce papers toward Mary. Her fork clattered against her plate as she stared at the documents in shock. What is this? I met her gaze, my voice steady but cold. It's exactly what it looks like. I know about the affair, Mary. I followed you. I saw everything. Her face went pale. David, don't. I cut her off. I don't want to hear your excuses. I don't want an apology. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. We're done. Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. No sympathy. No sadness. Just a dull emptiness where love used to be. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. David, please, can we just... I'm filing for full custody of Emily. That sent her into full panic mode. No, you can't do that. She's my daughter too. She deserves better than a mother who sneaks off to another man's apartment while her family is at home. Mary's face crumpled. She tried to argue, to plead, but I had already made up my mind. I had gathered enough evidence, transaction records, texts, photos of her leaving the apartment, to prove she was an unfit parent. The lawyer had told me that her infidelity, combined with her neglect of Emily, would weigh heavily in my favor. She stormed out that night, leaving me alone with our daughter. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal meetings and emotional battles. Mary fought hard, but she had no real ground to stand on. When the case finally went to court, the judge ruled in my favor. Full custody. Mary was granted only limited visitation rights. She was devastated. I could see it in her eyes when the verdict was read, but I didn't care. Emily's well-being was my only priority, and I wasn't going to let her be raised by someone who had so easily discarded her family. But I wasn't done yet. Mary had built her career as a freelance designer, working with high-profile clients who valued professionalism and integrity. I made sure they knew exactly who they were dealing with. I sent anonymous emails detailing her affair, exposing the lies she had spun both professionally and personally. It didn't take long for the fallout to begin. One by one, her clients dropped her. Contracts were canceled. Her reputation was tarnished beyond repair. She had been respected, admired, but now, she was just another scandal, another cautionary tale. As for the trainer, he wasn't spared either. Word spread quickly through the gym community. People whispered about the married woman he had been involved with, about the affair that had ruined a family. Members canceled their memberships, unwilling to train under someone with such little integrity. Management eventually stepped in, and he was let go. Mary called me one night, her voice shaking. David, please, you don't have to destroy everything. I laughed bitterly. You destroyed everything, Mary. I'm just making sure you face the consequences. She begged to see Emily more. She cried, saying she was sorry, saying she made a mistake. But it was too late. Emily was happy. She was thriving. She no longer had to wonder why her mother was too busy for her. I was there for her, every single day, making sure she knew she was loved. But even as Mary faded from our daily lives, I wanted to make sure she felt every ounce of what she had done. I reached out to a few more people in her professional circle, making sure her betrayal was known in every space she once occupied. Some defended her, but most distanced themselves. Nobody wanted to be associated with someone whose personal life had become public gossip. I heard from mutual friends that the trainer's wife had left him. She had taken their kids and moved out, refusing to speak to him. He had lost everything, just as Mary had. And yet, I still wasn't done. I made sure Emily had everything she needed: therapy, a strong support system, a routine that kept her stable. She asked about her mother less and less as time went on. She no longer expected Mary to show up for her, because Mary had already let her down too many times. The last time I saw Mary in person, She looked like a ghost of herself. Her hair was unkempt, her eyes hollow. She had lost weight. She had lost everything. She barely whispered my name when she saw me, and for the first time, I felt something close to pity. But it wasn't enough to forgive her. "You did this to yourself," I told her before walking away. Mary had her affair. But in the end, I was the one who truly won. Part 5. Mary's life fell apart faster than even I had anticipated. The career she had spent years building had crumbled beneath her feet, her name blacklisted in the design industry. Clients she had worked with for years refused to associate with her. Word spread fast, and in a world where reputation was everything, she had none left. The phone stopped ringing, the emails stopped coming, and before long, she was scraping for freelance work that paid a fraction of what she was used to. The trainer, the man she had risked everything for, had disappeared from her life almost as quickly as he had entered it. With his job lost and his own marriage shattered, he moved out of state, running from the damage he had caused. There were rumors that he was working as a trainer at some second-rate gym in a small town, struggling to rebuild his reputation. Mary had given up her family, her dignity, and her future for a man who had left her in the wreckage without a second thought. She tried to reach out to friends for support, but they had all distanced themselves. Nobody wanted to be around the woman who had destroyed her own family. People whispered when she walked into a room. Some pitied her, but most judged her. She had no allies, no support system, nothing. She moved into a small, run-down apartment in a bad part of town. It was all she could afford after losing her career, and the divorce settlements drained what little savings she had left. The glamorous, comfortable life she once flaunted was gone. No more designer clothes, no expensive restaurants, no luxury vacations. Just a dingy one-bedroom with peeling walls and the constant sound of sirens outside her window. She tried to fight for Emily, but the courts had already decided. She was allowed visitation, but that was it. I had full custody, and as the months went on, Emily stopped asking about her mother altogether. She had come to understand, in her own way, that Mary had abandoned us long before the divorce. The love that should have been unconditional between a mother and daughter had been severed by Mary's own choices. One night, she called me. It had been nearly a year since the divorce was finalized, and I hadn't spoken to her outside of brief, necessary conversations about Emily's visitation schedule. Her voice was shaky, desperate. "David, I don't know what to do anymore," she admitted. "I have nothing. No one. Please, can we talk?" I leaned back in my chair, staring at the phone. There was a time when hearing her like this would have broken me, when I would have wanted to reach out to help her, to remind her that she wasn't alone. That time was long gone. "No, Mary," I said, my voice calm, unwavering. "We have nothing to talk about. Please. I need to see Emily more. I need—" "She doesn't need you," I interrupted. "She's happy. She's thriving. And she's finally free from the disappointment of waiting for a mother who chose someone else over her." She started sobbing, but I didn't care. This was the bed she had made, and now she had to lie in it. I hung up, and just like that, Mary was nothing more than a ghost of my past. Meanwhile, my life had never been better. Emily and I created a home filled with love, security, and happiness. I poured all my energy into being the father she deserved. We traveled together, just the two of us, experiencing the world without the weight of Mary's absence dragging us down. Disney World, Yellowstone, even a trip to Europe, things I once imagined doing as a complete family. I now did with Emily alone, and it was perfect. My career flourished. Without the stress and emotional drain of a toxic marriage, I found myself excelling at work. Promotions came quickly, and financial stability was no longer a concern. I bought a new house, a real home for Emily and me, a place where we could build new memories without the shadow of betrayal hanging over us. I started dating again, cautiously at first, but with a renewed sense of self-worth. I knew what I wanted, what I deserved, and I refused to settle for anything less. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. One evening, Emily and I sat on the back porch, watching the sunset. She looked up at me, smiling. "I love our life, Daddy," she said simply. I smiled back, my heart full. "Me too, sweetheart." Mary had lost everything, her career, her lover, her dignity, and most importantly, her family. And me? I had one. I had rebuilt my life from the ashes of her betrayal, stronger, happier, and completely free of her. She would spend the rest of her days drowning in the consequences of her choices, a cautionary tale of what happens when you destroy the people who love you most. And I would spend mine living a life she could only dream of without her. The end.